Hello fellow cosplayers and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I am very excited to be back because I took a little bit of a break to work on finals, as it was the end of my semester, which I hope I did very well. But I am very proud to be back, and because I have a lot of fun ideas for 2022, and hopefully 2022 is a better year than it was. So if you guys aren't unaware, a little while back on this channel I delved into the origins of Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, and you guys apparently actually really liked this video, and so I thought I would tell some more of fairy tales while doing some makeup. And today's story, I thought I would do Cinderella. But before I get into this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel because I upload one video a week where I either do some kind of avant-garde beauty makeup look or a creepy special effects makeup while talking about some creepy stories or just pretty much anything in life. As well as that, I have some sewing projects that I'm planning on doing in the near future, so keep an eye out for those. You can also find me on my TikTok and Instagram. All those links will be listed in the description below. And enough with the chit chat, let's get into the video. Okay, let's start out with this video. Yeah, I got the mirror from Snow White. Not a Disney nerd, but I thought it would be fitting. Even though we're technically not talking about Snow White, we are still talking about a Disney princess. And so for today's look, I thought I would do kind of maybe do a dark forest on my cheek kind of look, if you get what I mean. So I am going to start this video. There are actually a couple of stories of Cinderella throughout history, but I'm gonna narrow it down to maybe a couple and maybe tell you guys some stories about that. But before I get into this, just a disclaimer and trigger warning that this video will contain some mentions of mutilation as well as slavery. So if you guys do find any of those topics triggering, please proceed with caution or just not watch this video altogether. So with that being said, so the original Cinderella movie was released by Walt Disney on March 14th, 1950. Prior to World War II, Disney was obviously at the brink of bankruptcy at the time of it filming, so Cinderella actually did save Disney's ass. Now, the source material for this movie was Cinderella or the Little Glass Slipper. Cinderella or the Little Glass Slipper was written in 1637 by French author Charles Perrault. Now this book is obviously similar to the Walt Disney movie, not surprisingly. And it does feature the fairy godmother, glass slipper, pumpkin carriage, and mice. But there are a bit of additional changes. First, the mice do not make Cinderella a dress. The stepmother is mentioned very briefly in the story. And the ball lasts about 3 days. Now, the original tale of Cinderella is obviously a little bit darker. So the German authors Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm published a version of Cinderella in their collection of fairy tales that was that is called ashenpuddle. I think that's how you pronounce it. But basically, the story of ashenpuddle is basically very similar. It follows a girl whose mother had recently passed away, and she ends up going to her grave every single day, and a white dove would often visit it. And then later on, her father marries a more wealthier woman that has 2 daughters, and they treat her very badly. They take away all her nice clothes and makes her work and do the chores, basically similar to the Cinderella story. And then obviously they ended up making her sleep in cinders, which then obviously gets soot all over her clothes, and which then they give her the name ashenpuddle, which means ash girl. Now eventually her father doesn't really do much about this, don't know why. Maybe because like he needed the money, he was poor, I don't know. But then eventually he had to go away because he was out for work, and of course asks, hey,
what do you want me to bring you back?
The stepsisters, being the spoiled little bitches that they are, ask for a lot of expensive shit. Ashenpuddle asks just for a twig, which actually I think is kind of sweet, because I feel like she knows how hard her dad works and knows that he can't really afford expensive things, so he like asks for something small. Ends up bringing them back her stuff and gets ashenpuddle her twig. She ends up planting on her mother's grave. It grows into a tree. So then the king is hosting a 3-day festival, and obviously she wants to go really bad, and so she begs her stepmother she can go. Her stepmother first says no, and she says, well, but then she keeps insisting, and then her mother was like, you know what, fine, just so you can get on my nerves, I'll make you a deal. I emptied out lentils into the fire, and if you pick them out, you can go. So then she goes. Of course it's gonna be impossible. And so then she has these birds come in, do it for her, shows it to her stepmother. The stepmother said, yeah, no, you're still not going. And then she leaves. And then so she goes. She then prays to the tree and like asks her, like gives her like in the tree for a dress, and then the tree gives her a dress that was, I think that was described as being gold and silver, and she was given a pair of gold slippers, so it was not glass gold. So then she goes to the festival for the 3 days, where she meets the king, and they end up starting to fall in love, which honestly I do think, if it's anything like that, if you want to establish a kind of relationship, because this is the thing that I have with these kind of like stories. Normally they just like fall in love instantly, but I feel like having like the 3-day ball thing really kind of like builds up to the prince and Cinderella's relationship, which I feel does kind of make a little bit more sense if you guys get what I mean. So ashenpuddle ends up attending the ball for the 3 nights, but each night she ends up having to leave early because she doesn't want to be caught by her stepmother, and she ends up each time avoiding the prince, once by hiding in a bird coop, the second one by hiding in a tree. And the third time she doesn't escape. She tries to escape, but she loses her shoe in the process because the prince poured tar on the stairs so that she can't really escape, but she ends up doing because she's girl boss. So then the next day, the prince then goes door to door looking for the maiden who fits the slipper, and he ends up going to ashenpuddle's house, and her stepsisters try it on and it doesn't fit, so the stepmother tries to ask them to cut off their toes and heels to fit in the shoe. But then obviously the prince passes that, and they end up getting discovered, and then ashenpuddle then ends up trying on the shoe and ends up marrying the prince, and they live happily ever after. And then as for the stepsisters, well, they get their eyes pecked out for all of their cruelty by the birds, which is very, very brutal, but hey, I guess it makes sense because they were horrible people. Now that that story's over, there is, of course, other versions that, if we even go further back to the tale, there are versions of this story that is like thousands of hundreds, even thousands of years old. So for the first one comes from ancient Egypt, and it is called Rodapees, which is about a girl that used to live in Greece who ends up getting abducted by pirates and sold into slavery. And while the other girls ended up treating her very badly and throwing stuff at her and beating her a lot, and that her cheeks turn red, and hence where she gets her name, called Rodapees. Now the slave master he's a good guy. Like, I am really surprised that someone like that would be a nice person. I thought, oh, slave masters are evil, but yeah, so he's good, and he ends up giving her a pair of nice red shoes, which ends up making the girls envy her more. And then so one day, while Rodapees is taking a bird comes down, swoops down, and steals her slippers. And so yeah, she steals her property. And so then he brings it to the pharaoh, and the pharaoh then asks,
who does this belong to? I must find out the girl who fits this slipper.
So he ends up going door to door, looking for the maiden who fits the slipper. And he ends up finding out it's Rodapees. And then they end up falling in love, and they get married and lived happily ever after. So yeah, that is pretty much the gist of the story of Cinderella. Now, if you want a part 2 of this story, because apparently there are a lot, if you want a part 2 of this video, because apparently there are a lot of videos, a lot of stories of Cinderella, which it would take way too long for me to cover it, and this video is already as long as it is, so I might maybe do a part 2 of this video. So if you guys want a part 2, then be sure to leave it in a comment if you would like a part 2 of this video. Yeah, so all the products used will be listed in the description below, and if you want to submit any creepy stories you would like for me to review, be sure to email them at email them to me at scarystorieswithwinter@gmail.com. And if you want to recreate any of my looks, be sure to tag me in them so I can see all of your recreations. And yeah, I'm gonna go probably take a COVID test because my throat is starting to get raspy. So, yeah. Bye.